please. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Area Planning Subcommittee West. My name's Dave Durrell. I'll be your chairman this evening. My vice chairman is Councillor Jean Lee. And I will introduce the officers as I come to. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or another use by such third parties. Please can I also remind members of the public who are registered to speak that they will be admitted to the meeting at the appropriate time. Please also be aware that if technical difficulties interrupt the meeting that cannot be overcome, I may need to adjourn the meeting. Item 2, advice to public speakers attending the council is attached on pages 5 to 8 of your agenda. Item 3, apologies for absence.
Chair, there have been 3 apologies for absence from Councillor Heather, Councillor Plummer and Councillor Sartin. I haven't got any information on Councillor Mitchell, but I've been advised that one of the councillors present may have further information and they may not be attending.
Is that you, Sam?
Sorry, I didn't catch what was said.
Have you got any information on if Councillor Mitchell will be attending?
I think we better extend apologies. I think it's extremely unlikely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Item 4, minutes, pages 9 to 12. Any objections? Can I take that as assent? Flick back forward on screens now.
Agreed.
But I'm not seeing any. Okay, thumbs up and things. Thank you very much. Take that as agreed. Item 5, declarations of interest. Again, seeing no hands. I'm going to need some help picking up when people have got hands up. Item 6, any other business?
Chairman, no other business as far as I'm aware.
Okay, item 7 is the Epping Forest District Local Plan Submission Version Planning Policy Briefing Note. That is just for noting. Site visits. I'm assuming that nobody needs a site visit for this one, and you can't have one anyway. So unless anyone has a strong reason for kicking upstairs, we'll move on to planning application EPF 1533/20, former Duke of Wellington, Mr. Jerry Godden.
Thank you, Chairman. Slight technical problem there with the unmute, but never mind. Hopefully members can see the screen. The only application tonight is for works at the old Duke of the old Duke of Wellington Public House in Wellington Hill, which is in the middle of Epping Forest. This is an application to demolish the existing buildings and construct 2 apartment blocks, each of 4 flats, provision of ancillary car and cycle parking, electric vehicle charging points, amenity space and landscaping and boundary treatment. Before I go through it, it should be noted that if members are minded to agree this tonight, we will require a further condition on regarding electric charging points. It has been discussed in the report and in the plans, but we just need to make sure that that is bottomed out with a condition. The site is within the red line area, and it currently is, as you can see, surrounded by Epping Forest on 2 sides, the built form of Wellington Hill on the other side, and to the northeast is High Beach Golf Course. The whole site is within the green belt and within Epping Forest, which is a special area of conservation. More close in photograph, you can see there's the existing pub buildings and other buildings in this area here, and the car park. The land behind where a new bungalow is being built with planning permission, and this field here and the stable there is also within the ownership of the applicant. Just the oblique view showing it is at the moment. So we have the former public house, which has some residential accommodation in it and an office space. The 3 guest houses for the 3 guest rooms for when it was running as a public house, and the building at the back. The scheme will see all of these buildings demolished and works carried out, as we shall go through. So just showing exactly what it looks like from the street scene at the moment. There's quite wide views over to the northeast. When viewed from the top one is viewed towards the northeast. The north. Yes, that is towards the northwest. This area, it's against the backdrop of Epping Forest, and when viewed. Oops, sorry, it's gone too far. When viewed to the northwest, there's longer views over the golf course and towards Hertfordshire. And we also have the buildings on the other side of the road as well. So this is the existing site plan, as I said, with 4 buildings labelled A, B, C and D. These were the existing public house, building A, and then the other buildings on the property as well. All of these will be demolished. So the scheme will see the removal of the buildings and the erection of 2 blocks of flats with car parking. This is a colour site plan which probably gives a better idea of the layout. As I said, the stables to the north and the bungalow here are within the same ownership, but they have planning approval for example, for the bungalow to be converted, to be built as a bungalow, because there was a mobile home there before, and the stables also have permission. So all the buildings in this area will be demolished, and then there will be 2 blocks, each with 4 flats in, cycle parking and vehicle parking with access where it currently is onto Wellington Hill. That's a blow up to show the parking spaces, how the parking is laid out, with the bike sheds and the bin sheds as well, and the paths around the actual property. The existing street scene is below. As you can see, it forms a fairly unstandard appearance. It's certainly an organic set of buildings that have grown up, and they would be replaced with 2 identical blocks, each block having 4 flats in, 2 at first floor, 2 at ground floor. The colour street scene gives an indication of how it steps up in the street as the land rises to the right in this picture. And the plans themselves showing the front elevations and rear elevations. Because of the topography of the site, at the back they will be slightly higher than they would at the front as the ground falls away towards the back. And then we have the internal layout at about first floor and ground floor of each of them, and they're identical for both blocks. Tree planting and landscape scheme shows planting along the boundaries to both the north and south. So this is the north to the new bungalow that's being erected, and here to the south, which is facing onto the other properties in Wellington Hill, and up here with where it's basically hard on to Epping Forest. So that's the scheme. We have received a number of objections to the scheme. Just get those up. The Waltham Abbey Town Council objects. The development is out of keeping with the surrounding area, adverse impact on the green belt with no very special circumstances identified. We then have a number of other objections from neighbours within Wellington Hill that the flats are out of keeping and out of character with the forest. The pub was deliberately run down by the owner. Materials are out of keeping. Hedges should have more native species. Loss of a community hub will put a strain on the existing infrastructure, more traffic and parking issues. We also have objections from CPRE Essex, the Open Space Department of the City of London, and the Epping Forest Forum, which are laid out on the reports on page 20 and 21. And we do have an objector from the City of London who will be speaking tonight. The officers have looked at this. It is within the green belt and it is within Epping Forest. So the starting point for our assessment of this case was that it is in the green belt. Now, this is a site that is previously developed land. It's quite clear that there is already properties on it. So I'm just trying to get the correct photograph back up. No, it doesn't seem to want to do that. Okay, so it is previously developed land. There are existing buildings on the site, and there is existing dwellings on the site. The property would see these buildings demolished and these 2 buildings before you put up, and they will consist of 8 dwellings. At the moment, there are 5 dwellings on the site, so there is a net increase of 3 dwellings on this site. In terms of Greenbelt, the demolition and reuse of previously developed land, which this is an acceptable use of land within the Greenbelt. The overriding aim, though, is to make sure that what is there is not replaced with something that is greater in terms of its impact on the openness and the character of the Greenbelt. And having looked at the plans, the officers are of the opinion that this is it's lesser volume, lesser footprint, as laid out in the report. And it has no adverse impact on the amenities in terms of the openness or the character of the Greenbelt in this location. The officers laid out in the report the footprint decrease, the volume decrease. There was a minimal volume increase, but not one that would make any significant difference. There's a 69 cubic meters, which is not very much at all. And the other thing is, in terms of the spread of the development, that it's got a width of 32 metres and a depth of 23 metres with the existing 4 buildings on the site. And this will reduce this both in width and depth, which will have a significant impact on the openness and visual appearance within the Greenbelt. So it is considered that this would not have any adverse impact on the Greenbelt, and in fact it meets all of the criteria for both national and local policies. In terms of its design, character and appearance and its visual impact, officers are of the opinion that it is replacing a set of buildings that are not particularly special in any way. As I said earlier, they've grown up organically and over time, but there's nothing particularly unique about them or anything that would immediately cry for their attention. And we feel that the proposed plans are a good set of solid designs that would not be out of place in this area, especially when looking at the properties on the other side of the road in Wellington Hill. In terms of the impact on the forest, Epping Forest is a special area of conservation. The applicants have put forward a habitat assessment in terms of this impact on the flora and fauna of the forest, including things such as great crested newts, and they found that there was none within 700 metres of the site, and other species such as bats, badgers and foxes. And it's considered in the report, and this has been assessed and accepted by officers, that there would be no harm to either the flora or fauna within Epping Forest, partly because the site is already occupied and there's already people there, there's people living there, etc. So it's considered that while there isn't, and it's acknowledged there's an increase in 3 dwellings on the site, it's certainly going to be less noisy and less active than a public house would have been when it was a public house. So that has been looked at, and we are of the opinion that it doesn't have an adverse impact on the forest in terms of the forest itself. It is clearly within 400 metres of Epping Forest, being in the middle of it. So if members are minded to grant this, there will need to be a Section 106 agreement to deal with the visitor stress on the forest. And that would be by way of a standard financial contribution or other contributions that we would need to take. In terms of the air quality, this has also been assessed in terms of the vehicle movements. Transport assessment has been provided. Daily vehicle movements would reduce from 71 to 27, and that would clearly have an impact on air quality. In addition, in terms of air quality, it is proposed that electric bicycles will be made available to all of the properties on the basis of 1 bicycle per unit, and that electronic charging points, which, as I said, needs just a condition on to make sure that we belt and brace this, would also provide acceptable impact on air quality. In terms of where it is, it's quite clear that this is not a particularly sustainable location on the face of it. However, there are 5 units on there at the moment. It is in an enclave of built form of properties within Epping Forest, and and that enclave has been there a considerable amount of time. The vehicle movements will be reduced, and it is considered that this would not be enough to justify refusal of the case. In regard of the public house or the use of it being an asset of community value, it has not been a public house since May 2017, and we confirmed in December that this was a change of use that was allowed, so there isn't a loss of the community facility. In terms of parking and highways, the County Council have examined the application and raised no objections subject to the relevant conditions for parking. It should be remembered that this is a site that is in use and traffic uses it already. And as the transport assessment says, there will be a reduction in use on the site. In terms of it impacting neighbouring properties, officers have looked at this and considered that there wouldn't be any adverse impact that would cause any reason to justify refusal. So in conclusion, the redevelopment of the site is considered an acceptable scheme. The site is previously developed land and has 5 existing dwellings and an office use on it. An increase in 3 dwellings is not considered to cause significant harm to the Greenbelt, Epping Forest or the amenities of neighbours. The scheme will have a positive impact on the current built development of the site and will not have an adverse impact on air quality in the Epping Forest Special Area of Conservation. It's accepted it's not a particularly sustainable site, but the reduction in vehicle movements and mitigation measures proposed weigh in favour of the scheme. And it's considered that there will be no adverse impacts on the adjacent special Epping Forest SSSI. And so it's therefore recommended for approval subject to legal conditions.
Thank you. We have 2 speakers on this application. First of all, we have the statutory consultee, Dr. Jeremy Dagley. You have 3 minutes.
Sorry, I just wanted to unmute yourself. I feel the starting point should have been rather than the Greenbelt, the special area of conservation, because Epping Forest is internationally important, and as a result is given very strict legal protection under the habitat regulations. And it needs to look at whether the development might have any likely significant effects, either alone or in combination. The key issue here is its proximity. It's right next to the SAC, and there is a net increase in the residential development at and around the SAC. And it needs to have looked at the recreational urbanisation impacts that spill directly out onto the SAC from this proliferation of residential development and the in combination. The development requires a full habitats regulation assessment and a screening assessment. And I'm not aware of a habitat regulations assessment. I'm only aware of a 34-page preliminary ecological assessment, which I presume is what the officer was referring to. In your local plan submission version, the HRA, your plan level HRA, is very clear that the quantum of residential development proposed in the EFDC local plan would cause adverse impacts to Epping Forest without mitigation in place. The proposed development also lies not just within 400 metres, but also within that zone of influence of 6.2 kilometres that your local plan has recognised. Your local plan submission version policy DM2 currently also has that exclusion zone of 400 metres. And as currently drafted, this requires a project level HRA for a site development like this. Therefore, this pragmatic policy in your local plan seems to be contradicted directly by this development without an HRA being completed. Your competent authority also does not yet have, at plan level, mitigation measures in place for recreation or urbanisation. These are not being agreed by Natural England. The HRA is still being worked on. There are 2 key cases I would point your members to. One is very recent. These are key cases, from inspected decisions. The inspected decision on the 9th of September 2020, so just a month ago, of 69 Browning Road in London Borough of Waltham Forest, made it very clear that, in the inspector's words, for that very small development of 69 Browning Road, there was no provision made to mitigate the recreational disturbance impacts, and the precautionary principle should apply. And that small development was refused, even though it was further away than this one. The second one, which is highly relevant, is the 19th of February 2014 inspector decision for April Cottage, Buxted at Ashdown Forest. That 2014 decision was clear, as in Epping Forest, that Ashdown Forest was an asset of more than local or national importance. Particular considerations must apply, including the need for a precautionary approach. And I repeat that a habitat regulation assessment is required. I would urgently request that officers seek Natural England's consultation and advice, because, as I say, your plan level HRA is not in place, mitigation is not in place. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a second speaker, which is the applicant's agent, Mr. Stephen Hayhurst. Again, 3 minutes, please.
Stephen, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Finally, thank you. All right, thank you. As Jerry said, this is an existing developed site close to other development in a village enclave at Wellington Hill in High Beach. It contains 4 main buildings which are already in a mixture of residential and office uses. Although in the Greenbelt, the new local plan and NPPF both support the redevelopment of brownfield sites, provided they would not have a greater impact on the Greenbelt than the existing. Officers carefully consider this issue on page 22 of their report and conclude that it would not have a greater impact on the Greenbelt, and therefore that the development is acceptable in principle. The original building has been altered and extended over the years, and new buildings added, which have resulted in a haphazard arrangement providing limited amenity space. The proposed development would simplify this, replacing the 4 existing buildings with 2 well-designed new ones. They've been designed to match the style of the houses seen locally, but will contain 8 much-needed new flats and would have communal amenity space significantly above the council's standard. We're sensitive to the fact that the forest is close by, but our ecology experts' survey shows that no protected species would be harmed, and we propose new landscaping and enhancement measures to improve biodiversity. Compared with the existing lawful uses, traffic would reduce by 62%, which means that 44 fewer polluting vehicles would come into the forest area each day. The provision of 4 double electric charging points and the donation of an e-bike to each flat would help further reduce air pollution. These are measures I would have expected the forest authorities to strongly support. Although there was previously a pub on the site, this became unviable, and as officers explain on page 25 of their report, the change to office use was carried out lawfully. Therefore, the loss of the pub is not an issue in this case. The council remains drastically short of new housing, and the delay in adopting the new local plan is exacerbating this. The approval of this scheme would enable 8 high-quality flats to be built, providing a much-needed alternative to the larger houses which predominate in this area, thus giving local residents the opportunity to trade down without moving out of the area and releasing some local houses for family occupation. Because of the expected reduction in traffic, granting planning permission would not have to be delayed to wait for the Epping Forest SAC dispute to be resolved. It could go ahead right away as soon as the conditions are discharged. And we are, of course, happy to enter into a Section 106 agreement to make a financial contribution towards the management and monitoring of visitors to the forest. I therefore ask you to support this application and to grant planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to members. I can see a hand up from Councillors Kane, but I obviously can't distinguish which one.
It's Helen, carry on.
Go ahead, Helen.
Thank you, Chairman. Could I have officers' comments, please, on the need of an HRA as per the submitted local plan?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. They have provided an ecological assessment. It's clear that the submission version local plan hasn't been adopted yet. It carries significant weight. But the officers assessed the ecological report, were of the opinion that it dealt with the issues fully in respect of this issue.
Thank you.
Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Am I unmuted?
You are.
Perfect. If I can ask the officer, Mr. Godden, what are the current ages of the existing buildings that are on that site?
I'd have to investigate that. Certainly the pub has been there some considerable time. In its current form, probably 30 years, I would have thought, from personal knowledge. I believe the 3 bedrooms for the overnight stays probably went up in the last, and this is no more than a guess of around 10 years. I'd say 10 to 15 years.
So if I could just come back briefly with regards to the pub itself, has a full materials survey been provided? The existing materials with regards to asbestos, paint, anything like that? Has that been conducted and provided to the council to ensure that there's no contamination of the surrounding areas?
That wouldn't be a planning matter.
Okay.
So
There's nothing.
that would be something dealt with by the building regulations if and when works go ahead.
Okay, and would that be the same for dealing with dust levels with regards to the demolition? Would that fall under that as well?
Well, one of the conditions is for a construction method statement, which would deal with how they build the site, and one of the issues there would be dust, along with noise, etc.
And would that also cover things like vehicle movements during the construction stages, wheel washing and air quality? So that would be covered under that as well.
Yes, the construction method statement should lay out to the council, and we'd have to approve it, how they're going to carry out the works with least possible disturbance to both the forest and the neighbouring properties.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, not seeing any more blue hands, but I can see
Councillor-
Jean's hand. Councillor Lee.
Yeah, I find it a bit strange that there's going to be flats there. And also there's no bus service there. And often when we are trying to get, permission for building, we're told it's not sustainable, there's no transport. As far as I'm aware, there's no bus service there at all. And this with the emissions in the forest, we're always being told we can't build it because of this, that and everything else. So I do find it strange. Also, I've looked at this and I'm going mad, but I can't see what size the flats are. Are they 1 or 2 bedrooms? And also, as Mary's not here, I do have to mention to make sure there's plenty of area for the bins, because that is a major problem in Waltham Abbey. So I would hate to think there's no proper bin area. And have they got any amenity space of their own? I realise they're in the forest, but is there any actual area for amenity space for the people living in these flats? Thank you.
Yes, councillor. They're 6 2-bedroom and 2 1-bedroom flats. And there is small amenity area for the flats there, but it's not considered. That's a major problem because of its proximity to the forest. And in regard to the issue about the sustainability, yes, we are. This isn't a particularly sustainable position or situation. We accept that. But it is the case that there's various mitigation strategies to provide electric bicycles to each unit, to provide the charging points as well. And the main case is the fact that this is an existing site where there's a lot of traffic movements, and and the assessment is that this scheme will reduce the traffic movements by well over half.
What about the bins?
In what respect, councillor?
Well, there's the bin area. I mean, they didn't show anything like that in our pictures. I like to make sure we got proper bin area.
Oh yeah, no, yes, there was a bin area shown on the plans. There's bicycle shed to the back of the property and the bins in the car park. So there's actually a bin store as well, a roofed bin store.
All right, I'll let you off.
Okay, Councillor Bassett.
Thank you. Again, seeing as Mary's not here, obviously I've looked through the conditions and there's nothing on hours of working again.
Well, we can, councillor, put that on as an extra on condition 15.
Yeah. And also you wanted a condition on the charging points.
Yes, that's right. So it would be an extra condition for charging points. And I could add an extra point onto condition 15 regarding hours of work. If members are minded to approve this.
Okay. I'm not seeing any more blue hands. Councillor Leppert.
Yeah, will the new residents have allocated parking spaces of their own, or will they be parking out on the street?
No, there is There's sufficient parking for all of the properties off on the site, which is off street.
Okay. Any other members? Can't see any more hands. Sorry, I'm having to scroll around because I'm on a limited device today. Okay.
There doesn't appear to be any hands.
Okay, therefore, we will proceed to the vote. The officer's recommendation is to grant permission subject to the conditions and the variations to those conditions that have just been discussed. And Laura, are you going to take us through the voting process?
Yeah, please. I'm going to do the roll call. Can you state clearly if you're for, against, or you're abstaining? So that's for the officer's recommendation. Councillor Avey.
Councillor Avey against.
Oh,
Councillor Bassett.
Councillor Bassett for.
Councillor Kane. Councillor Helen Kane.
Councillor Helen Kane for.
Councillor Sam Kane.
Councillor Sam Kane for.
Councillor Knight.
Councillor Knight abstaining.
Councillor Leppert.
Councillor Leppert for.
Councillor Stocker.
Councillor Stocker for.
Councillor Lee.
Councillor Lee for. Wake up, David.
Councillor Dorrell.
Councillor Dorrell for.
Thank you. I'll just add those up. So that's 7 for, 1 against, and 1 abstention.
Okay, thank you. That application, therefore, is granted. We therefore move on to item 10, exclusion of public and press. I believe there's no reason to exclude public and press.
No reason, Chair.
Item 11, refer sign, is just for noting. Therefore, I am proposing to close the meeting at 7:36. Thank you all.